Oh, can I even? Oh, I've rotated it. Oh no, I did rotate it. Oh well, sorry guys. I always try to do it in landscape, but it doesn't really let me. I'm just gonna see if I can quickly turn off all sounds. Here we are. Oh, I'm not wearing my glasses. That's better. That's the me I know and love. Okay, try not to make this too sexy. Not that I don't like being sexy, but Lord knows if a woman so much as wears a tank top, she must be a porn star looking for a dick in her mouth. So I'm always trying to be a bit conservative. But I do live at the beach. I mean, we gotta do what we can, right? Yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to get this so that you can kind of see a bit of the backyard. Hi, Lior. Okay. Let's see. We're back. We're back from Mazunte. I'm actually getting ready to film today a piece for the Patreon about Sayulita, Mazunte, Tulum, and like these other kind of, you know, sort of micro tourist hubs and what's going on in them. I've been really interested in. Ever since I went to Sayulita. So before I went to Sayulita, I asked all my friends in Mexico, is it true that you get sick in Sayulita? Because like this bullshit of foreigners coming down and being like, you get sick in Mexico. It's like, yeah, if you leave the winter and you get wasted in the sun all day and you eat at a buffet like a little piglet, you're gonna get sick. Like newsflash. And you can do that anywhere in the world and that will happen to you. So a lot of times, like I don't trust the information from foreigners because I think as soon as you go from one climate, boom, you're in another. Like our bodies are not made for that. So for sure your immune system is going to be lessened from that. And then people go and get wasted in the sun because like we're from a culture where like hurting ourselves with alcoholism is considered like YOLO and so a lot of times like that's not kind of how I travel, right? Like I'm not going out and just like pounding unlimited open bar at the beach. Not to say that everyone from home is doing that either, but it's hard to get good info because obviously like some overweight guy from Canada who don't really eat fruits and vegetables, who's pounding booze all day and eating deep fried foods, is probably going to get Montezuma's revenge, and it's going to hurt his system so much more than like if I get a little bug, as somebody not drinking, eating well, already living here. So I asked my Mexican friends, like, is it true about Sayulita? And they were like, oh yeah, everyone gets sick in Sayulita. Be careful up there. And I was like, well, what is it that makes everyone sick? And they were like, the raw sewage going into the ocean, which, I mean, I can't even sort of picture that. But I was very grossed out by that idea. And when I got to Sayulita, it definitely was very dirty. It looked dirty, it smelled dirty, it was just very dirty. Hey. And so I knew what people were talking about when I got there. There's like a river that runs into the ocean that doesn't have a lot of water in it. There's a lot of people, sort of dirt floors, tin roof type housing along the river, like just throwing garbage into it. And then that water runs right off into the ocean. The beach is also super, super short there. And so there's a huge amount of people kind of crammed into a very shallow space. And they have like no conservation there. I didn't see, it's like every time you order a drink you get a new plastic cup, so it was very different from the Mexico that I know and that I love, and it felt very dirty there. It also felt like way too many people for the space. So that kind of, I haven't felt well since I got back from Sayulita, even though I did take a strong probiotic while I was there, and I did the things that I normally suggest to people coming to visit, like take a strong probiotic and watch what you eat. And when I mean like watch what you eat and drink, I don't mean like don't eat lettuce. I think it's always really funny when people are like, well, don't eat the fruits and veggies because that's where all the water is. And it's like, no, definitely it's never good for your body to be eating burgers and deep fried foods. Like, that's not the answer, you know? I think just like try to keep a good balance. Cooked foods is a good look. But, you know, tacos, rice and beans, those kind of things, those are all fine here. Um, you know, it's more to take a precaution, not because like you're going to get sick from the water, but because your immune system is so depressed going into it that whatever you come into contact with, you know, can't be good. 8, 8 billion is a strong probiotic. Sorry, somebody asked me here, Amanda Sprit asked me how many billions is a strong probiotic, which is a really good question. They sell this good one that we take, Luna and I, and they sell it in 4 billion and 8 billion, and I take it in 8 billion, and I give her the 4 billion. And we take it morning and night for 5 days, or daily for 10 days. It's called Etrogermisia or something. You can buy them here. I mean, I would get them from the pharmacy here, and I did go right to the pharmacy in Sayulita because I was sick like within like an hour of being there. Um, we're coming this week and taking 30 billion. I doubt it's 30 billion. Uh, just to be totally honest, like almost nothing that they give you in Canada is as strong as it is here. I don't know why they're so weak because a lot of times the packaging says there's more in there, but they just are. They're just like watered down. I don't know how it works, but they definitely have better probiotics here. But always good to start taking one before you leave to help your immune system. And then you can always get additional stuff from a pharmacist here. It's affordable. They're very knowledgeable. And this Sayulita pharmacist was hilarious. She had like everything out for me. She was like, everyone gets sick here. So I ended up taking this stuff for like gastritis on top of it. But yeah, I think the 30 billion probiotic, Amanda, is like such a good start. And you can always, you know, if you don't feel that it's helping you when you come and visit or wherever you're traveling. Yeah. Somebody asked me about taxes here. So the question that you've asked me is, you must be American because Americans pay taxes based on their citizenship, meaning that even if they are living outside of the country, they still pay taxes. Canadians pay taxes based on residency. So it's a bit tricky. And generally speaking, if you run a company in Canada like myself, and you want to live outside of the country, then you would be incorporated. So you would be separate from the company. So the company would still pay taxes and you would not have to file as a non-resident. I'm a sole proprietor and we've been working that out for a while. I don't have citizenship here yet, but I actually have only filed this year as a non-resident. I mean, I don't really make enough money that I think the Canadian government's coming after me. To be totally honest, the Canadian tax system is done on the honor system. Nobody's like, you know, when people say, you're going to lose your health care, it's like, how? How are you going to lose your health care? Is your doctor like living at your house? Like, Canada's done on the honor system. Me personally, because I still run a company in Canada and I'm putting into the pot there and I pay taxes there. I've been told by many, many people that I should be still using what's available to me there. I personally don't use the medical system in Canada, even though I do pay for it in my taxes like everybody else, because I just morally feel like it's so clear that I don't want to be there, you know, and therefore we don't use it. Plus, we do get better healthcare in Mexico than we do in Canada. Like, I don't need to like wait for a week to get an appointment and then sit outside someone's office for an hour and a half. Like, I can just go the day of, in and out. It's all very easy. I'm like more in control here. It's very affordable. So we live here, right? So we have our relationships here. The gynecologist appointment here is, I mean, it just smokes the Canadian system. For about $20, you get a regular PAP, an examination, but you also get an ultrasound, and you get, I think it's called colposcopy when they look under a microscope. And in Canada, you only get that if you get a bad PAP. So it's a much more thorough. And I, as somebody who's had cervical cancer in the past, I feel so much more confident with the level, like how, like they look at me under a microscope. I want that. In Canada, I can't request anything. They just determine for me what they want, and people slip through the cracks a lot because of the system there. And I feel like I'm believed more here, if that makes sense. So anyway, that was a bit of a diatribe. Back to the Sayulita thing. I started thinking a lot while I was there, like what makes these places so filthy? They talk about open sewage, but when I looked into it more, like I think that we have this idea where we're like, oh, well, it's Mexico, like, open sewage, of course, like they're so filthy down there. But I was like, black sewage into the ocean, like that doesn't sound like Mexico. So, oh, somebody said I just keep my finger off so I don't get sick in the US. Yeah, the US, I mean, the US is a third world country, so it's set up that only rich people can pay, right? And then the rest of everybody can't. So it sucks. I mean, third world countries are really shitty unless you have a currency that is valued higher or you're in the top, usually it's about 20%. I know in the US it's like less. It's like less than 10% of people can actually afford to live there. But yeah, it's a third world country. I mean, it should have third world status. To me, I think the US has been a third world country for a long time, and it definitely needs third world status. It does not get first world status, even though, I mean, what does that even mean these days? But yeah, so I looked into it more, and the reason that, and so they don't have black sewage going into the ocean at present, but a year ago they did, which is, I mean, that's just toxic. I mean, that's drinking straight out of everyone's toilet. That's awful. And the reason they did is because they didn't have the infrastructure for how fast the town was growing. So the reason that Sayulita is as dirty as it is because of tourism. So we worry about coming and getting sick, but it's us that makes it dirty. And this has been my theory for a little while, and I started looking into it because we went to Mazunte this weekend. It's a beautiful little hippie beach town close to here, and I love, love, love Mazunte. They're building at like breakneck speed there, but I mean, it's a tiny beach town. Like there's two roads. It's smaller than Sayulita. It's like tiny, 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 tiny. And they have a water shortage right now. And anybody that lives there, works there, I mean, there's notes everywhere, like we have a water shortage, please conserve water, please don't leave taps running, please, if it's yellow, let it mellow. Like that is totally the vibe in Mazunte right now. And because it's kind of a hippie town, there's this real feeling of like, let's pitch in together and deal with this water shortage. But like, the more I looked around, I was like, but they're building here at breakneck speed. Like they've opened a like sort of Bali style pool. Like the why is there water shortage? It's a town of that town can support like 1,000 people. For sure there's more than 1,000 people there right now. Zipolite, which is really close by, they have a water shortage as well. And they're like, as I'm going, I was asking the cab driver, because I drove from Mazunte over to Zipolite. We were going there to visit a friend of a friend's business. She just opened a mezcaleria there. And, she was telling me like, well, business is going to do really well because, there's all these people coming in. There's all these direct flights from Canada into Huatulco. Huatulco is a designated tourist town like Cabo or Playa del Carmen. So it kind of makes sense about those places because those places have infrastructure to deal with all that. But, Zipolite doesn't. And, so they're flying into Huatulco and then driving the hour over to check out Zipolite and stuff. And like, obviously we can handle the volume. Kind of breaks my heart to see because I see Mazunte going in that way and I don't know how to end it. We stayed in an Airbnb that we got a really good deal on, but it's a new build there. And I was looking around and thinking, how can I make better choices here? Do I need to never stay in a new build? Do I need to start? I mean, definitely, I think there are some things that we can do, and this is like kind of what I'm going to outline in a Patreon video. Places like Tulum, I mean, they say they only have toilets for 20% of the people in Tulum. That's horrific because underneath Tulum is, what should be have a UNESCO designation as a protected water source, all those cenotes, like what people go to Tulum for is for, all these cenotes. It's a waterway that runs underneath. It's about as ecologically interesting as the Amazon rainforest. Like it's so diverse, and people who go to Tulum shit straight into it. 80% of them at least. So, it really brings up this conversation about like how much is too much, where is the line, when do we stop, how do we stop? And so I've been thinking a lot about that lately. I mean, water in Mexico is a really, the conversation is sort of endless. I don't know. It's funny because it rains a lot all over Mexico, but they don't catch rain here in any way. And then, I mean, obviously in the States, it's like illegal to catch rain in a lot of states, that's like the government saying they know we're going to run out, and they're taking steps already. They should have composting toilets. They do have composting toilets all over. It has nothing to do with composting toilets. We need to stop the flow of people. This issue is not going to be fixed with building more stuff. It's going to be fixed with less people going. We're like, I'm really taking a step back after these 2 trips and thinking like, okay, I don't want to stop going to Mazunte. It's an hour from us. It's like a little cute getaway for us. Sometimes we just go for a day trip. But I did come back thinking, because I live here, I can at least go in the off season. I could maybe take Mazunte off my list between November and March. Let the other people that only get down in that time enjoy it then, and I can enjoy it at a different time of the year. I think that's like sort of where I'm at right now. I mean, I don't know if any of my ideas are the right ideas. They're the things I'm trying to come up with something that's going to be more gentle, because, I mean, I'm obviously going to watch it get destroyed by tourism, but maybe I can contribute less, rather than, like, I don't necessarily want to go in and like tell people what to do, but like, I didn't feel good waking up in a new Airbnb there, hearing about water shortages, wondering how can I do better, going forward. I definitely think that not going to Sayulita ever again is probably the look on that one for me. If I never go to Tulum again, as long as I live, I'll be fine. And then I think about places like Bali. Like, Bali is such a special place to me in my life, and Bali is essentially just a larger version of these places. So it's concerning. Thailand's just like one giant toilet. And I don't know, I heard in Boracay, I mean, they opened Boracay, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, in the Philippines, and they closed it 6 months later because of the garbage on the beach. Like, there must be a way, like, the thing is like, I don't think that it's any of our faults individually, because the way that tourism is set up is so that we're taking a shit on the place that we're going to visit. So I don't think it's about, like, we need to change the way we're personally doing things. There has to be like a systematic change as well as a personal accountability. Like, the two have to go together, I mean, I guess one of the solutions I thought is like, now when people are, somebody wrote in, I'd rather not see these places in the short term if we're going to lose them in the long run. I mean, tons of beaches have been closed in Thailand. But I think that it's important for people that are traveling, because I think on the other end, like, having lived in Canada for so much of my life and coming down to Mexico as a vacation spot, like, I was never told, like, there was no, people are so worried about getting sick from the water, they never stop to think, why is the water dirty to begin with? Like, we are the ones that make it dirty. We just assume that everything outside of our door is like poor and dirty and dysfunctional, and it's totally not the case. I went to lots of all-inclusives when I was younger and never even thought to ask the hotel, who owns this hotel? Where does the money go? Does it stay in Mexico? Is it Mexican owned, or does it go outside of the country? And that's not to say that every company in Mexico is amazing, but like, why would I want to send my money out of the country? This conversation has just come up recently in Mexico City, and it's been ongoing because cab drivers are like, Uber's stealing all our money. Well, when you take an Uber in Mexico City, all you're doing is sending your money to the States and to England because it's Google and Amazon. You're literally taking money out of the pockets of the very people who you were house guests with. And I don't think the average person wants to do that. I just think that it's a lack of knowledge, you know? You know what I mean? Like, if I think as soon, always tell people, and the worst part is there's so many Mexicans that use Uber because they think it's superior because it's foreign. I'm always telling people, why don't you use Cabify? It's like an Uber app. It's in the cities, just a big, just, I think it's just in Mexico City and maybe Guadalajara. Um, Different places have different apps. They also have one called InDriver, which is really cool. It's very Mexican. Everything about it is so Mexican. I really love it. But they do have alternative apps, and it's funny because everyone says, "Oh yeah, I never use Uber. I use Didi," but Didi is a Chinese app, so it's like the same problem, different country. But there is one called Cabify that I use in Mexico City, and for me, like it took me trying different things to learn these things too, you know. And somebody telling me, "Why don't you use Cabify or instead of Uber?" Um, I mean, I don't use Uber at all, period, anywhere in the world. I always, now that I know that there are local options all over the world, I always ask, what's the local option? I look for that. So, Cabify is an Uber-like app, but it calls cabs. So if you can't hail a cab, you can call one and it will come to you like an Uber, but you're getting an actual taxi. So you're getting somebody who, you know, when there's like, they have rules, like they have to apply for their taxi license. They have to be, you know, regulated. They're regulated. Uber is not regulated. And it's local. Like I literally put the money into that guy's pocket. Instead of, also, Uber is the most expensive in Mexico and it pays the lowest. I've asked Uber drivers. A lot of times they're on a couple different apps, and yeah, it pays the lowest. Cab drivers are like my source of everything. In Mazunte, I was asking a cab driver, like, you know, you born and raised here? And he's like, yeah. I was like, so where's the most build? And he was like, in Zipolite for sure. And I was like, and it's Mexican people building here, right? And he said, no, it's foreigners. And foreigners, we're not even supposed to be able to build on the beach, but we're doing it. You know, we find a way around. I know here in Puerto, there's a lot of, well, it's foreigners and it's like rich, crooked locals, either tied to the government or tied to like big companies, like family of that. And they build here, like they're not supposed to build over 2 stories, and they're building like these huge, monstrous apartment buildings and stuff. And there's like nothing in place for like the fact that it's an illegal build. There's no policing body for it, you know, and that's how people get away with it. They take advantage of the fact that I'm pretty sure all of the money in Mexico in terms of policing anything goes into fighting a narco war that they don't even consume the drugs for, you know? Oh, someone else is saying public transport. Public transport, yes and no. Public transport can be very unsafe here, all throughout Latin America. So my advice with public transport is always, yes, take it when you're comfortable to take it. So like in Mexico City, there's only some places I would take public transport. I would take the above ground metro anytime, anywhere. But, you know, somewhere like Guatemala, for instance, like there's only some buses. And like until I know the town, but the city better, I'd never take it. I mean, it was the same in New York too. When I moved to New York in the late 90s, I wouldn't take the subway until I had it figured out, you know, as it was unsafe. You could end up in an unsafe part of town easily. So yeah, just that, I feel like that's just like tips for women traveling alone. So yeah, the Mazunte trip was really nice though. What a beautiful place. And one of the things that's really lovely about it is that even though it's growing a lot, it's still like maintaining its identity. You know, it hasn't been changed into this like bloated redneck destination. Yeah, a lot of rednecks from Canada come down here. A lot of people that are just not educated about the world, nor are they looking to educate themselves about the world. They are looking to go on vacation and maintain their lifestyle from home while getting a cheaper deal, and that is it. And I wish that kind of tourism would just die, but it's not. I think it's just going to be going more and more all the time. Oh, yeah, Omar just said here, what is, out in Spanish, he just said that it's good to use the authorized taxis if you're not using Cabify. Yeah, learned from a cab driver there that the license plates start with A and start with B are authorized. Anything else is like a fake taxi, because there are robberies in taxis both ways, where people rob taxi drivers and taxi drivers rob people. So when you look on the license plate, it has to start with an A or a B in order to be legit. So that was like, I felt like that was a really good hot tip. So yeah, authorized taxis, and they have to be the white ones with the pink stripe. I mean, don't even get another one. I like it though. Like, other people are like, oh my God, it's unsafe. But like, it's not unsafe. It's part of the fun, you know? Never had, I mean, I get pickpocketed a lot in Mexico City. That happens to me a lot. I'm awful. I just like, I'm with Luna and I get distracted by her. I'm such a target for pickpockets. I actually, a really great company that offers, like, mugging proof bags just wrote to me. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Julio. Julio just sent me a tip. I love this tipping thing on here. I gotta say, it makes me feel a little bit like a stripper. And nothing against strippers, my sisters who strip, but like I like the little tipping thing is like it's kind of like I'm stripping for it, you know? Have you ever been to Santo Reyes Nopala? No, I haven't, but I would love to. Somebody asked, where's the father of your child? Luna doesn't have a dad. Where have you been, David? This is an old story. Luna doesn't have a dad. She has a biological father. Well, we call him a bio-D. She's aware that I made her in my tummy, and she's seen photos of him, and I've told her, to make a baby in your tummy, a man has to help you, and that's the man that helped me. He does come in and out. He's recently kind of come back on the scene and wants to know about her. And anytime that he emails or texts me or whatever and asks about her, I always send. I mean, I don't need an excuse to gush about Luna, but I definitely club. He's very, very artistic. He's a famous tattoo artist in Guatemala, and he is a very great artist. So, Luna is sort of showing some flair for the arts lately. I mean, she's interested. I wouldn't say she's any good. I should go get the magnet that she made and show you guys how bad it is. I wouldn't say she's very good, but now that she's at Kids Club, they are doing a lot more crafts with her and a lot more art projects, and she really loves it. And I can tell that she kind of gets that from him. So I've sent him some of the art stuff. I think he's interested in knowing more. But no, he's never been here. He's never wanted to be here. Yeah, Crips Club. Somebody said Crips Club. It's still being a Crip. Somebody else said they want to travel to different places and have different experiences. I think, yeah. I mean, I think that part of what the problem is with tourism is that when you're outside, MJC 427, thanks for the tip, buddy. I love it. I think like one of the issues is that, if you're living in Canada, it's like, and he said no need to strip. Thank you. I'm actually not going to strip, but it does make me feel like a stripper a little, like in an exciting way. I think that what happens is like we're given such limited information. Like when you're living in Canada, it's like you read like these like New York Times like top places to explore. It's like everyone reads that. And then everyone goes to those places. It's like places become trendy, and I think it's because we get limited information. Like the information that's given to Westerners is highly, 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 highly like edited, incredibly curated. Lior, thank you so much for the tip, baby. But yeah, it's like highly curated. I mean, that's a nice way of saying it's propaganda, but like the information is not as broad as we think it is in the West. I find much more access to more information living here. I almost feel like it was blocked from me when I was in Canada. Also, in those cultures, the stress is so high because it's so expensive that all people do is work, and they're so stressed out all the time, and the priorities are all messed up. So I don't think that people are also paying attention or get enough time in their day to really take a look and question things. People, absolutely in Canada, nobody questions shit. Literally, we are the biggest shit eaters in the world. I mean, if things just change, like prices just increase, and we just shift to meet it. Like, can you believe it's a country that there's no help with daycare and nobody's ever like protested that at all? And then we go to other countries and we're like, oh my God, daycare's so affordable here. And you're like, yeah, it's affordable everywhere in the world. Like, the US is the same, but I think with the US, it's like, I mean, the US's issue is that they're under like heavy programming, you know? I think, I don't know. My personal theory in the US is that they haven't put any money into education or healthcare in so long, in so many generations, that now they have a really big population of people that are super dumb and super unhealthy. And when you have that, it's like, it's a different kind of thing. Like in Canada, like we're still healthy and educated. We just are completely apathetic. We just don't care. We just don't. Just don't at all. And I think it's because we're so overworked and underpaid that we just don't have any time to care. Like when you take a moment to stop and think about it, that's when these things come to you, you know? That's why it's so important to travel. Like, travel is really important. It's a really important part of questioning yourself, your life, your culture, where you want to go, what you can be improving, how you can contribute better. Like, travel gives you that moment of, it gives you another perspective because you get to see the world from another perspective. It reminds you that we're all in this together, you know, and it gives you that pause that you need. Like, I think most people are really smart intuitively, like, regardless of their education level. I think that we have a lot of intuition. It's hard to listen to that when you're not, when you're constantly in motion. You know, you have to kind of pause and think about things. It takes me a long time to think about things now, and it's so funny. I made so many like quick decisions when I was living in Canada, and now it takes me much longer before I come to a decision on things because I want to take my time and really like chew it over. Somebody's asked me, do you know if homeschooling is illegal in Mexico? I doubt it. I mean, I've never heard that. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure you can do whatever the hell you want with your children here. Um, I know there's a lot of pressure to vaccinate, but I don't think that it's even required anywhere. Some private schools, like really like uppity private schools, might require it because they're private. They can do whatever they want. But we want to finish her vaccine. She has like round two. She's supposed to have a lot, but she's got 2 rounds of 3, and she hasn't been vaccinated since she was 1. And I did want to get her the final vaccinations. Like basically the 12 that I got as a child is what I want her to have, and she doesn't have them all. She has like 9 of them or something. Because they come and you have to get them every certain amount of month and like booster them and whatever. And we just haven't done it. It's free here in Mexico if you want to vaccinate your kids, though. As it's also free in Guatemala too for every, even on tourist visas, we got them for free there. But I just have been lazy about it. I'm not anti-vaccinations, but I'm also not pro-vaccination. I'm like somewhere in the middle. But I do like that nobody's ever like forced me. Some of that could be too, though, that I'm an outsider. Like even when I get my passport, I'll still be viewed as an outsider. So like a lot of times people don't make me do the things that locals have to do, whether they're legally or socially pressured. I know in Guatemala, like kids were forced into vaccinations all over the lake, and they're not allowed to force you there, but they would do it to local kids, and it's like, it's a poor community, and what's their recourse? What are they gonna do? You know, I have a really good friend who's a lawyer in Guatemala who used to work in Quiche, which is like mostly indigenous, and he worked with violence against women, and he told me like it's so hard to get women to report. And I was like, yeah, because nothing's going to happen. And he's like, well, definitely nothing's going to happen if you don't report it. And he really told me, he was like, it's so difficult there because we're there to help. We have so much in place to help. And they're so, but the community doesn't trust authorities so much. Like it's so ingrained for so long because of so many horrible things that have happened. That's like impossible for me to get people to trust us enough to let us help them. So it's really complex, you know? Speaking of bad water, the lake in Guatemala has horrible water. Everybody gets sick when they go there, Guatemalans included. And the main reason is tourism. Like, ugh, like my people go down there and build these places, and then the lake rises, and all these like septic tanks are in the lake. And they did also have some issues with farming runoff. And again, it was like foreign companies like Monsanto coming in and trying to get them to use all kinds of disgusting chemicals and whatever. It's just like we fuck these places over so much. Oh, it's both me and my sis. Oh, sorry, MJC, did I call you a dude? I didn't mean to. It's a woman. Um, the quote, so the comment, like when people leave comments, they like come up and then they like fade out and then they come up again. So when you leave a long one, it takes me a few tries to be able to read them. Oh, yeah. So you're talking about retiring outside of the country. I mean, I might be a bit biased here, but I really do feel like Mexico is the best country in North America, like bar none. Like the longer I live here, the more I'm like, I cannot believe my vision of this country was so myopic for so long. You know, like everything I love about Canada is present here. And they're big. It's 140 million people. It's a big country, you know? And I don't I don't feel like Mexico is a poor country. I feel like it's a country that's been taken advantage of and pushed into poverty through corruption and foreign investment. But I don't actually feel like it's poor here. I feel like people work and they do live paycheck to paycheck, but so does I feel like everybody's living that way. They just don't live on credit here. So people really live paycheck to paycheck. Like they have no credit catching them. But the majority of the people from the Western world that ask me, like, how was I able to leave and live here? The reason that they can't fathom doing it on the money that I make, which is less than $40,000 a year US, is because they have debt. And I don't have debt. So keeping a zero balance is like a really smart way. You know, you can make a lot less money as long as you don't have debt. We have a little bit of debt from the house right now, and it's hard to get out of it, even if it's a small amount. All these people are writing in their really lovely stories of going to Mexico and not wanting to come home. It's funny, I grew up in, I was born in Newfoundland, which is a part of Canada out in the east. It's very separated. It joined Canada in 1949, which is very, very late in the game. And it's very different culturally than the rest of Canada, sort of like how Quebec is very different, the French part, than the rest of Canada. And they have a saying there that you know the Newfies in heaven because they just want to go home. And when I moved down here, they have the same saying in Mexico. And I always wonder, like, did Mexicans like come up with it and give it to the Newfies, or maybe like settlers that went to Newfoundland also came here and had the same saying, like they loved it here. But yeah, you can tell the Mexicans in heaven because they just want to go home. And I always say here, no hay iguales, which is true. Like there's no equal, and there really isn't. Like the longer I live here, the more I'm like, I sort of think of Latin America and then I think of Mexico as being kind of separated. And this is not to shit on any other Latin American countries or that they're all similar because they all have their own flavors. But there's something about Mexico where it's like, only in Mexico would that happen, or like, only Mexicans do that. Or, you know, like, I feel like there's a lot of really unique things to Mexico that could only happen here, you know? There's a lot of ingenuity here that doesn't exist in anywhere else in the world anymore. You know, like I saw a really good meme and it basically said Mexico could take over the world, but we don't want to. Like we could dominate the world, but we just don't care. We don't want to. And it was a guy in his car with his cell phone elastic band to his head. So instead of a Bluetooth, he just had the phone here. And when I saw it, I was like, that's so Mexican. Like, that's just so like, okay, I'm not allowed to use my phone or I'll get a fine in the car. You know, I need a Bluetooth. I'll just like affix my phone to my head and go forward. Like, it's such a like, let's just keep it moving kind of culture. And I really like that. I really, really like that. At the same time, it's not solution oriented. It's super funny. There's so many like, it's just a really quirky place. Like, you know, the only other place that I can think of in the world that's quirky like Mexico is India. India is also like an incredibly quirky place that is so dysfunctional and yet functions so highly. And it's like there's so many things in India where you're like, only in India is this possible. Could something like this happen and still work great? You know, like there's so many things there that are just mind-boggling. And Mexico too, it's like it's just this place where it's like it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense. Or like it doesn't make sense, but it works. That's a lot. That happens a lot here. And I love it. I always see so many little things that are just like so hilarious and ridiculous, but they work. And I think, you know, eso paisano, you know, get it. Totally. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Um, so many people are writing in about how that's so true, that Mexico is very ingenious. It is. I mean, they can figure out their way out of anything here. It's so great with like nothing, with no tools. It's awesome. It's a very, very talented place. Um, yeah, it's a beautiful country. I mean, I'll sing its praises till my death, most likely. I hope so, at least. Anyway, thank you so much for coming for the live. Thank you to the people that tipped me. I love feeling a bit like a stripper, and your tips are going to a really good place. They're going mostly to Luna, since that's where all my money goes. And yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and this will obviously be available up there. And if you join the Patreon, we'll talk more about Sayulita and Mazunte there. It'll be uploaded this week. Anyway, everybody have a really great day. Bye.